Wild Mamas and Friends, Tiff here, and welcome back to my channel. Over the last weeks, we've been having some amazing discussions and dialogue around how to manage your emotions in difficult times. So if you've been wondering how to even process all the things that you've been feeling and experiencing this very difficult time that we find ourselves in, keep watching this video, because today I'm going to not only show you the step-by-step process that I use, but I'm also going to share from my own personal journal, which is such a sacred space for me. So I hope you'll continue to stay tuned, and we have lots and lots to learn today. All right, Wild Mamas and Friends, let's dive into today's topic. I decided to host this video in my cozy corner because it's the place that I love to process my emotions. I journal every day, basically right here, usually early in the morning. And as you know, in last week's video, I talked all about how to manage your emotions in difficult times. We talked about finding time to do that deep reflection, even with kids at home. So if you haven't checked out either of those videos, be sure to do that so that you know where we're at in this 4-step process that I've been walking you through over the last couple of weeks. If you have watched those videos, kudos to you, and you'll want to make sure that you have your feelings list already with you done, and then you'll also want to have thought proactively around how you're going to welcome in your feelings with intention. So again, you can refer back to video 1 where I gave you those prompts and those questions for how to prepare and how to welcome, and then in the second video we talked a lot about how to find that time. So you'll just want to be really intentional about the kind of time that you're trying to spend on doing this listening and dialoguing with your feelings that we're going to talk about today. All right, so let's get into talking about processing our feelings in order to build self-awareness. So sometimes I feel like the best way to learn is to, see examples from other people. And so I love to journal, and I have an example of when I did this exact exercise myself. And so I want to share it with you so that you can see how it actually works and actually hear from my feelings and what they have to say. And I think you'll be really surprised by just the amount of wisdom our feelings have to share, despite the fact that I think most of the time we're taught to fear our feelings or to hide them or suppress them. But there is so much wisdom, and I can't wait to share some of the wisdom that my feelings shared with me when I was processing some really difficult emotions. So the first step that I took is the same one that I told you all to take in the first video, which was name your feelings. So again, I used the NVC, nonviolent communication, and their feeling list. I just went through this list myself, and for every feeling that I felt, I wrote it down, and I wrote it down here in my journal. So that's the first step that I took. So after I named my feelings, I didn't actually come back to my feelings until a couple of days later, but when I did come back, I came back in the morning. I sat right here basically, and I just started to give the floor to each feeling one by one. So even though I listed out a lot of feelings, I only ended up reflecting on 4. And for each feeling, once I let it speak fully, I then posed the question, what's the possibility beyond this emotion or beyond this feeling? So for example, one of my feelings was anger. So the question that I asked myself and I asked my feeling was, what is the possibility beyond anger? So after I asked what's the possibility, I literally let the feeling answer it. So again, I'm treating my feelings like my friend, or like I'm having a conversation with a family member or someone that I love, my bestie, but I just let the feeling answer. And so this is the dialogue part, right? The listening is when you first give it the floor and you allow your feeling to express itself, but then you have to dialogue, you have to ask probing questions, you have to engage, because we're trying to get to the deeper root of what is actually at the bottom of that feeling in the first place. Why is it there? to start with. So asking those questions and dialoguing creates that possibility for you to start to understand the deeper inner workings that are happening within you, which is the point of everything that we're doing right now. So I just went through that process with all of my feelings until I felt like my feelings had fully expressed themselves. So now I want to share with you some actual examples from my own life. So I'm not going to get into all the, nitty-gritty details of my life here, but I will say that I had a recent experience that was really, really challenging, something that happened in my life, and it was really confusing, and it made me angry, and quite frankly, I was pissed. And I just had a lot going on that I needed to sort through as a result of this really weird situation. So I was feeling extremely overwhelmed, and I had a lot of things coming up, and I wasn't quite sure what to do. So of course I grabbed my nonviolent communication book, and I went to the feelings list. And remember, in video 1 I said that the book kind of sorts your feelings into feelings that you might be having when your needs are not being met, and then feelings you might be having when your needs are being met. So I went to the list where my feelings clearly were not, or my needs were clearly not being met. And so I just wrote down everything that I was feeling. So I'm literally going to read out the feelings to you because I think it's important to name these things, because perhaps you're feeling some of these things right now in your life. So some of the feelings that I was feeling: angry, anxious and overwhelmed, distressed, betrayed, confused, dejected, disgusted, appalled, exhausted, furious, heavy, shaky, shocked, uncomfortable, sad, upset, pissed, horrified, astounded, blindsided, bullied, manipulated, stupid, exploited, unappreciated, treated unfairly, and disappointed. Hot damn. I was feeling a lot. I don't feel all of those things anymore, so thank goodness our feelings, they resolve themselves and they pass. But damn, I was feeling a lot just a couple weeks ago. So that was a lot. But a few days after I kind of, was just in my feelings and letting myself be where I am, trying to process, I did come back to my journal early in the morning. I think it was like 2 something in the morning, and I just gave myself permission to just really move through and process these things. And so I want to share with you some of the conversation and dialogue that I had with some of these feelings. So even though I listed out, I don't even know how many, 10 plus feelings, I didn't actually end up engaging with all of those feelings. I ended up just picking 4, some of them that were actually on the original list, but that came up afterwards. And so the 4 feelings that I ended up exploring was shame, anger, fear, and sadness. So these feelings are ones that I'm going to share a little bit with you today, so that you can just see the process and see how I actually dialogue, and actually I do talk to myself and I talk to my feelings, but I find it very, very useful and beneficial. All right, y'all, so we about to get a little personal. So I have my journal. If you were here, I would show you right next to me, but it's like you're here. So this is my journal. Okay, so the first feeling that I explored and had a conversation with was shame. So this is what shame said: I want to feel bad for myself. And remember, there's no judgment. I gave shame the floor. I gave all my feelings the floor, and I did not judge whatever wanted to be expressed. So shame said, I want to feel bad for myself. And I asked, well, why? And shame said, because it's easy and what I know. And so I asked the question, what's the possibility that exists beyond shame? And immediately shame answered, sorry y'all, I have a bird. My daughter has a bird. So the bird likes to tweet when I'm recording. So immediately shame responded with pride and joy. That's what exists beyond shame. And so I replied, I love that. You have a right to feel bad because this is really difficult and causes so much stress. But let's release it together and be in pride and joy. So shame didn't have a lot to say, but I found it really profound, and I loved the replacement of pride and joy. All right, so up next is anger. So again, no judgment for all that anger wanted to express. I think y'all will be fired up by anger and what anger had to say. So this is anger. I want justice, revenge, and for the wrong to be exposed. The devil's head on my spear and burning on fire. And I replied with, oh damn, anger, you're on fire. And anger said, I'm pissed and this is outrageous. No one comes for our family, you, and no one has the right to lie or shit on your light. And I said, I agree. And these feelings are so valid, and we love our family and we are protectors. So all of this makes sense, especially because we did nothing wrong. And then I posed the question, so what's the possibility beyond anger? And anger immediately responded with confidence and action, being in our power, walking through that tunnel with eagle eyes, focus, and light. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I had a vision that morning of me in all of my goddess warrior dress, walking through a tunnel. And so I drew, so if I can get the lighting here. Oh yeah, right there. So I drew me walking through that tunnel. So that's what anger was presenting to me. All right, mama, so if you're vibing with what I'm saying and maybe even resonating and like, hot damn, I feel the same way right now today, tell me in the comments what you're vibing with, what's ringing true for you, and let's keep this discussion going. All right, so if you're not used to doing this kind of thing, listening and dialoguing, it might feel a little bit uncomfortable at first because it is like kind of like talking to yourself, which in, you know, the first video I said, AKA talk to yourself. So, you know, it is something that might be a little bit awkward for you, but again, just treat your feelings like your friends. And I want you to treat this conversation as you would if you were talking to anybody that you were having like a personal, intimate, vulnerable conversation with. And I'm sure that you'll get over that little awkward hump if you just allow yourself to kind of get into the process. But at the same time, this is Wild MamaTV. We are all about expanding our wild. So even if it is a little bit awkward, the point of tapping into the wild element of ourself is to begin to explore the expansiveness and the layers and all of the parts that make us who we are and allow our intuition to fully emerge. So yes, it might be a little awkward, but wild mama, that's what we're all about, right? So if you're trying to be a wild mama and really tap into that wild, intuitive, powerful nature that exists within you, you know, just try to be patient with yourself as you get used to it, but being able to engage in this process is what's going to help you allow that part of yourself to start to emerge so that you can develop that deeper awareness of yourself and your higher self, and be, you know, the best version of you. So I know it might be a little new, but that's what Wild Mama's all about. So don't be afraid to embrace your wild. And just know that you're safe, and anyone that matters is not judging you, including yourself, right? So don't judge yourself, even if it feels a little weird. Don't worry, like some people think, oh, if I write personal things in my journal, somebody's gonna read it. Don't let that shit get you down, and don't let it block you, because it's not true. Okay, we're adults, we're not little children. We don't need to hide our diaries. We grown. So let's just embrace our wild together. All right, so up next is fear. So fear had a good amount to say, not too much, but a good amount to say. So fear said, I want to survive. I want to be liked. I want to be known as good. I don't want to be attacked. I don't want to be attacked. It's hard to not internalize it. And I said, wow, I hear that. All of that makes sense. It sounds like you want to protect your ego, your image, your sense of self, which is so valid. And fear said, and my character and my values. The predator is real and I have to defend and protect, but it's also scary. There's so much out of my control. And I said, that is so true. It's like the adrenaline that comes from fear can make you shaky and take over you if you let it. It takes strength, power, and intention to turn that into useful energy. So what's the possibility beyond fear? And fear said, warrior, hands down. Preparation, because most of what I fear is the unknown and what I don't know and can't control. But if I prepare myself and I'm confident in my warrior skills and abilities, I can harness and transform my fear and slay. Yes. And I responded with, hell yeah, this is awesome. So, me and my feelings we be riffing in a positive way. And it's very empowering because I'm not being controlled by my feelings, but my feelings have the power to express themselves fully. But I am in my right mind, in my higher self. I am operating truly from my intuition and my wild. And so there's many, many realities that can exist all at one time. And I don't have to become those things, but I can learn from the wisdom that they have to share with me, which is what we're talking about when thinking about managing our emotions and having these, conversations. So you can see this is really powerful stuff. And I can't wait for you to engage in this same process and see what emerges for you. All right, y'all, I'm really enjoying sharing all of these, the wisdom from these feelings. And I hope you're enjoying them too. Like, not everybody every day gets to hear from my journal and my feelings. But I think it's just so necessary because we need to normalize the wisdom and the voice of our feelings, because this is something that is so suppressed in our culture, and so much of our wild is suppressed, and so this is why Wild Mama exists. And so I want you to know it is totally normal for your feelings to speak, for you to have this kind of dialogue with yourself. You are not crazy, you are wild, and so I just want to encourage you and emphasize that this is okay, and this is very, very healthy and important. And it allows you to operate at your highest vibration and highest self, which is what we want in the first place. So, sadness. So sadness was the last feeling that expressed itself. It had a lot to say, and I was actually quite surprised. So I'll just read through this because I think there's a ton of wisdom here, and a lot of realizations you'll see that I was even having as I was going through this dialogue. So sadness, what do you have to say? So sadness said, I feel the loss of what was and what I maybe hoped for or thought would be. And I responded, yeah, that's true. We really thought that relationship or those relationships were part of the reason why we were here. But sometimes we need those initial things to motivate us to action, even if in the end they weren't the real purpose. So sadness says, yeah, and I hope for all that's good in the world. Conflict with others can feel like that's being robbed, and it can cause me to question myself, which is so real. And I said, yeah, wow, yes. It also seems, though, that we might be associating healthy boundaries with creating conflict and drama. But those things are very different. We have the right to set boundaries, say no, or defend ourselves when wrong is done to us. We are allowed to speak up. And sadness says, that is so true. I think some of the distress and feelings can feel similar when in conflict and when saying no or setting boundaries. So this was a really big takeaway for me that I'll share more, on the next video about this. But this was something that I wasn't even aware of until I had this conversation with myself and my feelings. So I said, yeah, and it can feel like we're the ones creating the conflict, but in truth, we're drawing a line in the sand and saying no more. Don't come any further. We are creating a barrier around our sacred space. And sadness says, which very much is a stance. That's right. Taking a side, making a decision, and making clear decisions is hard because there's always a result, some kind of consequence, which So true. Wisdom of sadness is on point, y'all. So I said, so it seems there's quite a bit here. Maybe the sadness is also that it came down to this and we had to do this. Set a boundary. Of course, we all want peace and love, but this is also the reality of life. Sadness says, yeah, and it's okay to feel sad, but we don't want to resist reality either. No, we do not, honey. So then I asked the question, so what's the possibility beyond sadness? And sadness says, I'd say to intentionally grieve and to also be clear about what I'm sad about. And I said, yeah, because I'm not actually sad about setting the boundaries, even though it's hard at times. But I do think we came to Hawaii believing or hoping for one thing, but things are evolving so far beyond that it's a lot to process. And sadness says, so another possibility then is openness. Letting go of those hopes and ideas to be open to what truly wants to come through or wants to emerge. And so I said, wow, I'm surprised by how much was here. I didn't expect it, but yeah, it's sad to have to be so stern and direct with other adults. But in the end, I don't have control over others, only myself. And so only I can say, stop, enough, don't come any closer. And sadness said, absolutely. Absolutamente. Wow, y'all. So I hope you enjoyed hearing from my feelings as much as I did just reading it again. There's just so much wisdom that shame and anger and fear and sadness had to share with me to help me move through and process that difficult and very challenging situation that I found myself in. Okay, so I hope that my example clearly demonstrated for you how to process your emotions and how doing so builds your self-awareness to just like this ultimate degree. You can see how much I gained and all the insight that I got from each of my feelings by having this exchange, right? The listening and the dialoguing, which again is step 3 in our 4-step process on how to manage your emotions in difficult times. So now that you know how this process works, it's your turn to do this deep work for yourself this week. So this week, I want you to take your feelings list that you already created, and maybe you have more feelings that you want to add to it now that you've heard some of the feelings that I expressed or had written down for myself. But now I want you to do as I did and treat your feelings like your friends and just have a dialogue and conversation and see what wants to emerge. Your feelings are not anything that you need to be afraid of, but I personally set really clear intentions about how I wanted to engage with my feelings. I didn't want to judge, I wanted to be open, but there were points when I did have to set boundaries when my feelings were just coming at me all week. And I was like, yo, I gotta process some other things, but I promise to give you some time. So can you give me some space before I can get into that process? And they totally respected it. Things calmed down, and then I was able to come to the cozy corner and do some deep reflection that day, and it was so powerful and so healing for me to engage in that process. So now it is your turn. Okay, so after you take the time to process and reflect this week on all of your feelings and give them the floor through listening and dialoguing with them, I want you to come over to my blog and join the conversation. Tell me what's 2 things that emerged for you and that you learned from this process. And also I want you to let me know, what did you find was possible beyond just the initial naming of your feelings? What became possible when you asked that question? What's the possibility beyond anger, beyond sadness, beyond shame, beyond fear? And let us know what you got from this video. So just to recap again really quick what we've been covering over the last couple weeks. So our 4-step process for how to manage your emotions in difficult times. You already should have accomplished step 1, which was naming your feelings. Step 2, which was welcoming your feelings with intention. And then today you learned about step 3, which was to listen in dialogue with your feelings and emotions. So we are trying to develop a heightened level of self-awareness. We are trying to re-attune to the wild woman, the wild being within us. And this is exactly how to do that. It seems very practical, it ain't sexy, no one's looking at you doing it, but this is what's going to allow you to fully come into yourself and become that whole and thriving being, beyond just being a mama, beyond just being a partner, but being you, the whole version of yourself that is clear and aligned to your overall energy of your soul, which is, for me, what drives me, what inspires me, and helps me show up every day. And also, just to remind you, I did create a little cheat sheet of all 4 steps for how to manage your emotions in difficult times. So you can find that below. Just download it, your free copy, and it'll help you stay accountable and to remember the 4 steps so that you can practice. Because again, y'all, we are not here to just have, fun times in the cozy corner. We are here to change and to transform and to evolve and to rise, right? So you cannot just show up here and listen and think, oh yes, that sounds good, but then not go do anything yourself. So we are all about action at Wild Mama, imperfect action all day, every day. So be sure to download that cheat sheet so that you can remind yourself. You got to print it out, put it on the wall, whatever you got to do, because this is a tool and a resource that can help you not only in difficult times, but all the time. So don't miss out on that free resource available to you. Okay, so in next week's video, we're going to be focused on how to declutter your mind and find clarity. So we've been in this process of how to manage your emotions, but step 4 is all about finding resolution and taking action. So you can't just uncover all of these emotions and not do anything about them. So step 4 in our process is going to be about decluttering, taking action, and making sure that you're actively finding clarity in what you're going to do next, so that you're not harboring all of your feelings and emotions and just staying where you were before, even if you have a little bit more awareness. All right, so again, mark your calendars. Meet me here next Tuesday, and be sure to subscribe to my channel so that you know when the next video is released. You can also subscribe to my newsletter, where I'll let you know also when the videos are published. So thanks again, Wild Mamas and friends, for joining me today. Thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable and open with you and share from my feelings. And I hope that you got a lot out of it, and I hope you learned just how deep and how wise your feelings and emotions are. So have a lovely day, and peace, Wild Mamas. I'll see you in the next video.